You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Hey, welcome again to Mission Log Engage, the show where we get to engage with your comments and questions and deep thoughts. And we're back at it, our second show of the new year, and answering your email. As I've said, it is a mix of positive, negative, deep thoughts, lighthearted stuff, critical, less so. And that's what we have today. So, Norman, I believe we have a comment from, it's from a few months ago, but it's somebody who is just getting into Mission Log, but also trying to square that with current coverage of New Trek. So, yeah.
So this email is from Scott, and Scott says, I really love your podcast. That's it. I love that email. It's so good. I love hearing from Scott. No, I'm kidding. I'll continue.
We're done. We're done.
Done. I really love your podcast, and I've listened to every episode starting at the beginning of TOS. I'm just getting to the end of TNG, which has brought me to the first episode of Mission Log Live and your first discussion of Star Trek Discovery. As of this writing, Discovery is in season 4. I am very interested to see how you cover this series going forward because IMO, it is the best quote unquote looking Star Trek series to ever be on TV. And at the same time, the worst quote unquote written Star Trek series ever. Though Picard is giving it a run for its money in poor writing. Oh, it's getting hot in here. I believe all the actors do their best with the materials they are given, but to me, this new incarnation just isn't Star Trek. Full disclosure, I am 59, so that places me directly in the TOS camp, and I'm sure some young people like these new shows, but I would point to the problems of selling them and to the complete lack of merchandising interest that, say, most Star Trek fans do not like them. I will always watch every episode of any Star Trek series, but I have no interest whatsoever of ever purchasing these two new series on physical media. I am hopeful for Strange New Worlds, but unless there are some series upgrades to the writing staff and they add people who actually know Star Trek, then it too will be a disappointment. My fingers are crossed though, and hope does spring eternal, so we shall see. Just as I am hopeful that you will review it and analyze it objectively and not through the lens of this is my employer's new show. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. So now I did write back to Scott and just say, hey, we are going to tackle this on Engage. So I hope that you find this at some point. And yeah, listen, thank you for going back to the beginning of TOS and listening up through TNG, and then you'll jump with us to DS9. And yeah, Mission Log Live was designed specifically so we could address current Star Trek week to week. And get listener feedback in real time, because honestly, it would be too difficult to do regular Mission Log on the current shows, especially because the current shows are written with that seasonal arc, and it would be very difficult to do one by one the way we do with traditional Star Trek. So there is a lot to address here, and I will say that from the beginning, regardless, Roddenberry's name being on any current Star Trek, Rod's direction to us has always been talk about what you want to talk about. Be critical of the things you want to critique. That's up to us. That is not up to anybody else, and we don't answer to anyone when it comes to that. I will also say this, that I think you and I and the people that we have as hosts with us on Mission Log and its various permutations, we try to start from a place of positivity. We try to start from a place saying, look, we like Star Trek. We want to figure out what this Star Trek is trying to say. And that's really the most important part. But then do we have our criticisms of what is happening? Yeah, absolutely. We're in season 4 of Discovery, as Scott points out here. And the first 2 episodes, I went on the live show and said, I am just not feeling it. This is so action oriented, and the big bad, the big anomaly, like it was driving me crazy, and I was not into it. And you and I will text back and forth like, oh, this episode is killing me.
Yeah.
But that said, I want to come back the next week and see what's in store for me. And then like by the 4th episode, I really liked what was happening.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a mixed bag for everybody, What about you? I think this is a good email to address because there's probably a lot of people like Scott.
Sure,
You know?
sure.
Yeah.
There's an adage out there saying that, if you're a Star Trek fan, you're a Star Trek fan for all of it, and I completely 100% disagree with that statement. You don't have to
Yeah.
to like all of it. You don't have to dislike any of it. It's your Star Trek to watch. It's your time to watch this entertainment. Remember, this is entertainment.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear about this. This is entertainment for you to be able to absorb and to glean and to be inspired by, or to completely disavow if you don't like it. It's your entertainment, the way that you want to absorb it, the way that you want to be able to digest it, and to be able to get out of it what you want to get out of it. That being said, there are always going to be, in 55 years of Star Trek, there are always going to be series that are going to be a little bit more connective with other people, because each individual series reflects the time period of which they were made, from which they were made. In 1966, Star Trek had a very specific look, a very specific direction, and a very specific way of discussing its points or addressing the audience. That's because it was made in that time period. Maybe people don't connect with the way that it's shot. Maybe people don't connect with the way that it was written, or the way that the social political message of the time is being conveyed. So you get into 1987. This is firmly into the late 1980s, early 1990s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Each individual Star Trek reflects the time period of the audience that it's supposed to be able to talk to. So in Discovery, you're having a lot of representation in Star Trek Discovery, because it has never been done so before in any other version of Star Trek ever. And it's definitely talking to a very specific new audience that wants their representation on screen. If that's not the Star Trek for you, it's not. But it doesn't disavow, or it doesn't, it doesn't take away from all the Star Trek that you or anyone else appreciates that has previously come before that. So enjoy that, celebrate that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's still valid, it still contributes. And the longer you watch a certain series from the point of which it was originally shown, the more I think you get out of it, because our lives change along with that series, and we get more in the experience of seeing it then to now. So that's the way I approach seeing all these different versions and interpretations of Star Trek.
Yeah. I will take issue with just one little thing in here that Scott says, and it's sort of making a remark about adding people who know Star Trek into current production of Star Trek, and that is factually incorrect. The people who work on Star Trek know and care deeply about Star Trek. And at the same time, it has never done Star Trek poorly to bring in people who are new and fresh perspectives and new and fresh eyes on that franchise. Nick Meyer is the perfect example of that.
Right?
A person who knew nothing about Star Trek and came in and put his stamp on it, and still everybody says that his movies are the best movies. So, you also need to bring in people to whom you can say, okay, look, this is Star Trek, and you know and you care for Star Trek, but we're not going to put sort of guidelines and tell you what you can and can't do. You need to flex your creative muscle. You need to tell the story that you are compelled to tell, with the stories, with the characters that you want to write for. So that's something that is sort of the nature of the creative process. And I would not be so presumptuous to tell somebody like, hey, I'm going to hire you to write this thing. Now, let me tell you everything you can't do. That's that's not how I would ever treat it, and I don't think that's how the production is treating it either. So I think the best thing we can all do is be open-minded and check out stuff. And Norman, very much to your point, not everything has to be the show for you. Enjoy and celebrate the ones that are. And then maybe you come back to some of the later ones, the ones that didn't quite sit with you, and you check them out again one day.
And that may happen. Thank you, Scott, for that email, and thanks for writing in. And if you would like to discuss, like Scott, any of what you think Star Trek is or isn't about, you can always share your comments with us at missionlog@roddenberry.com. You can always find us on Facebook and Twitter at missionlogpod. You can always subscribe to this channel here on Roddenberry Entertainment, here on YouTube. And remember, we may engage with your comments on the air.